Welcome to the show, guys. Say hi to Soph. She's hanging out with me today, and I am going to show you how to find top dead center on a 924S or 944 Porsche, so stay tuned. Alright, welcome to the show, guys. Well, I bought this Porsche a few years ago now for $1,500, which I think is a pretty good price, but it came with a lot of little things that needed to be fixed, and so over the last few years I've been driving it regularly and then fixing things as they needed, and then also planning for a lot of cool stuff that I'm going to get to eventually in the future. But for now, I need to change the timing belts. The thing is when I bought the car, it didn't come with any records or anything of any kind. If you're gonna buy one of these cars, like a 944 or 924S, if you can get maintenance records with it, that is what you want to do, because there's a lot of maintenance on these cars that needs to be done at regular intervals, and one of them is the timing belt. If it gets too old, it can break or stretch or skip teeth. And then because it's an interference engine, the valves will hit the pistons, and that'll be a big giant headache for you. You'll have to pull off the head, maybe get new valves, hopefully not screw up your pistons, and hopefully not break something so that it goes through the motor. So since I had no idea of how old the timing belt is, I've kind of been watching it over the past couple of years. But finally, once I had the vacuum leak fixed and it seemed to be running good after that, I decided it's time to go ahead and change the timing belt. Well, I have some other problems with the car too. I've got oil leaks that need to be fixed. It's got a pretty bad leak coming out of the back of the cam tower, plus a decent leak coming out of the front of the cam tower as well. Plus, I have a noisy lifter. One of the things that can happen, especially if these cars sit for a long time without being driven like mine was, is the lifters will bleed down, and then eventually something will happen where they won't pump back up again. And in my car, I have at least one lifter that needs to be fixed. And since we're going to change the timing belt and also the balance shaft belt, put in some new seals, probably do a water pump, and because it's leaking out of the cam tower, I decided I might as well go a step further and fix the lifters too. Well, if you're going to do any of that servicing, you're going to have to find top dead center. And hopefully, if you are going to do a timing belt change or some other work on your car and you are wondering about what it takes to find top dead center, this video will help you do that. So just now I removed the fan, I removed the power steering and the air conditioning belts, and then the next step is to remove the plastic covers that cover the timing belts. I didn't have the top cover on mine, so I'm just removing the bottom one here. But if you have yours on there, obviously you would need to remove that one too. And then in order to spin the engine over easier, I'm pulling out the spark plugs so that there isn't compression in the engine, and that way the engine will spin over nice and easy. I put paper towels in all the spark plug holes except for the number one cylinder, because I want to be able to look down there and know that the piston is all the way up and at top dead center. And then I'm going to line up all the marks here that are on the balance shaft pulleys, the camshaft, and the flywheel. I'm going to be using a flywheel lock that came in a timing belt changing toolkit that I got online from 944online.com. So we are going to remove the starter here. So obviously you have to take off the wires and then remove the bolts. And then once you get those out, the starter just drops out. There you can see the flywheel and the ring gear and the teeth that the starter engages with. All right, the crank is a 24 millimeter. Here's a shot of the crankshaft pulley and the bolt that you're going to be putting that socket on so that you can spin the engine over until you find top dead center. Sometime in the past, somebody removed the rubber plug that goes in this port, so I can't show you guys what that plug looks like, but this is the hole where it goes, and you can see through there the plastic tab and the flywheel where we're going to spin that and then find the timing mark that's on the flywheel there. The timing mark on the flywheel is really hard to see, and without a camera like this, it's pretty much impossible to see it and then make sure that it's lined up with that timing mark. So if you're going to do this and you want to be able to reference the mark on the flywheel, you're going to need something like this camera in order to see that mark. So you take your camera there, set it up so you can see down in there as you're spinning the engine over, and then watch for the timing mark as you spin the engine over. And the goal is to line up the timing mark on the flywheel, using it to reference the crankshaft, and then line that up with the marks on the balance shafts and the camshaft. You want to rotate the motor over in the direction that the engine turns. Turn it clockwise, and it's okay if you need to move it back a little bit to get the timing mark perfectly lined up, but in general, don't turn the engine backwards. If you've gone past the timing mark, spin the engine over all the way around again until you come back to the timing mark and try to land on it that way. It's kind of deceptive because there are these marks here that look like they would be the timing mark, and they're actually really close to where the actual timing mark is. But just don't be deceived by these little dots, because in a normal world you would think that they're the timing mark, but they're actually not. Oh, the clutch. That's what it is. Don't forget to put the car in neutral, because you'll be fighting that if you don't. And then I started by spinning the motor over until the rotor inside the distributor is pointed to where the number one cylinder would be on the cap. If you don't see timing marks anywhere close on the camshaft, then you know that you probably have to go around again to find top dead center. And once you do, you should be able to spot that line through that hole. And the timing marks on the balance shafts should be somewhat close to the plastic tabs that they're supposed to line up with too. That little nick right there is supposed to be over. Then you can really start looking for that timing mark on the flywheel. And for me, it was easier to spot the OT that they have stamped on it, and then close to that O is a line, and that line is the actual timing mark. All right, I see it now. It's really hard to see. I'm gonna rotate this back and forth a little bit and see if I can actually see the line. Is that the line? That's the line. There it is. So there you can see the line. And there it just disappeared underneath the marker. So I'm readjusting the camera here, so now the picture is going to be flipped around. But basically that is the line. So there the line is just to the left of that pointer thing. And you want to get that line lined up with the plastic pointer. All right, and actually right there, the balance shaft is right on the mark. And then check the mark on your camshaft and your balance shaft belts, and once you're satisfied that it is as close as you can get it, you can lock it down. If you're having a hard time seeing the timing mark, or maybe if the belt was not in exactly the right spot from the beginning, you can put a chopstick down inside the number one cylinder hole and have someone rock the flywheel back and forth and watch that chopstick, and when it gets to the exact top of its travel, where it goes up before it starts going back down, then you know that the number one cylinder is at top dead center, and you can lock your flywheel down there. But for now, it's in a good spot, so let's check out this tool from 944online.com. This is not a commercial for them, but I do buy some stuff from them, and this is where I got this, so there you go. So I assumed after opening this up that it is made to just use the bolts that hold the starter in place, and you can just use those bolts and then bolt it up and lock the flywheel. But after I tried installing this, I just could not get it to work with the factory bolts. It doesn't really fit in as good as I thought it would. Unless I put a smaller bolt through there. Could I put a smaller bolt through this side? Yeah, I guess I could do that. Let's see if I've got an 1 3/4 inch, maybe a 3/8 by 16 might work, like an 1 3/4 inch. I know I've got some nuts, so I'll look for a bolt. And the only way I could get it to really lock down was to use a aftermarket 3/8 inch bolt that was long enough to pass through the one side that isn't threaded, and then put a nut on the back side of that bolt to hold it in place. Tighten those down and call it good. So I wedged the teeth up into the flywheel and tightened it down. And now the flywheel is locked, and my timing marks look like they're in the right spot. So there it is. Well, there it is. Hope you guys liked the video. If you haven't, it would be really awesome if you hit that subscribe button, and check back for new episodes of Project Porsche. See you next time. And shout out to my subscribers. Thanks for subscribing, guys. You want to go in the water? Here, what happens if I put you in the water?
There you go, you're in the water.